Before we get started with this week's episode, I have a quick question. Is social media a priority at your school district? I'm sure it is, but do you struggle with time and content? Like what to share? Then I think if the answer is yes, then I think that you need to check out my social media boot camp. We have less than 20 spots left for our October boot camp. It's a 5-week program that offers deep personalized dive into social media best practices. You're going to get weekly group coaching calls, access to a private Facebook group with your cohort, and accountability to truly reach your goals. You can sign up in the notes. You can go to socialschool4edu.com and check out the boot camp and get signed up. But again, we have less than 20 spots remaining. And if you want your spot now to make social media easier for the rest of this school year, you're going to want to sign up. Now, welcome to this week's interview. I'm so excited to introduce you to Christine Peck. She is out of Poway Unified School District in San Diego. It is a huge school district, and we are going to spend a lot of time talking about her student internship program. You guys, she only has 3 people in her communications team, and they have 39,000 students. They have 39 schools. Like, it's an amazing feat that they have to do. And their trick is they use student interns. So we are diving through it all, how they get selected, how she trains them, what kind of assignments they do. And then we're also going to jump into, the ways that they use social media and some of her best tips and tricks for social media that you can apply to your school district. So I'm so excited. And there's a surprise little announcement at the end of her interview. Christine's actually a published author, and it's super cool. So you've got to stay on to listen to her story about how she authored a book that is illustrated by her mother. This was her COVID project. She wrote a book, and it's out there now for you to buy, and which I hope you all buy for your school library, because I think every school library in their elementary wing should have Christine's book. So let's get started with today's interview. Today's K-12 PR tip is all about when to use social media. Okay, you guys, we are at the beginning of a new school year. There are a lot of things still in flux and in changing. And there's a reason to use social media, and there's a reason not to use social media. If you have something to celebrate, that goes on social media. If you have some information, that is direct communication, meaning website or emails or phone calls or however you directly communicate with parents. But information about back to school plans, about mask changes, about shutting down your schools because of quarantining, or whether it's just, maybe a reminder about, some little picture day. I mean, it's information that doesn't go on social media, because you guys, social media posts don't reach all of your followers anyway. And in many cases, it's reaching people way outside of your school district. Social media is for celebrations, pictures of kids and things happening and events and information is direct communication. So the next time that you have somebody that says this needs to go on social media, ask yourself, is this celebrating or is this information? Because if it's information, we should be putting that out through direct communication methods. If it truly is celebrating, then it goes on social media. Okay, that is your public service announcement for this school year. Learn from others, you guys. There's so many people that wish they could hit the unpublish button when it comes to putting out informational items and then getting negative feedback and comments and questions that are really hard to control, because social media just opens Pandora's box. Social media is for celebration, information, direct communication. Okay, now I'll get off my soapbox and we're going to get on to this awesome interview with Christine Peck. Welcome to the podcast, Christine Peck. So glad you could be here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here too.
Yes. Well, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hey everyone, my name is Christine Peck. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Poway Unified School District. We are a medium to large size public school district, TK through 12, located in sunny San Diego, although today it's not quite so sunny. We've got some cloud cover. But we've got 39 schools, about 36,000 students, and about 5,000 employees. And I've been in my position here at Poway Unified for almost 6 years.
Holy cow, that is a big district. You call it a medium-sized district. I call it like a huge school district. And you guys are in school now, and how are things going so far?
Yeah, so we had our first day of school on last Wednesday, August 18th. So far, so good. Obviously, we've had, some COVID cases and a few quarantines pop up here and there, but all of our schools remain open and we continue to track the conditions and we are hopeful.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, to get people back together, I'm sure there's a lot of excitement. So you're the chief communications officer. How big is your department there, Christine?
So actually, for our size district, our department is actually very small. In terms of communications focused positions, it's myself, and then we have a communications specialist. And then also in my department is a legal support specialist because I also oversee Public Records Act requests from our community, and so it's just the three of us.
Christine, three people, 39,000 students, and that one person is like legal. So I can't even believe you can do that, but you can do that because you have like this secret superpower, which is using some student interns. Is that right?
That's right. We're very proud of our student internship program. We really tap into our students' skills, talents, and passions to become content creators for us.
So was that student internship program something that has was there before you started, or is that something you got started once you got there?
Yeah, it wasn't here when I first started here at Poway Unified. And like you had mentioned, I was really just trying to problem solve the problem of just this department of being one person. So it used to be just me. And I said, there's got to be a way to not only help me create content and cover this entire district, but number two, involve students in a way where they're getting hands-on learning. I'm a huge proponent of career technical education, and I was thrilled to connect with a teacher here in our district who had the same vision. He's a digital media teacher and he's really wonderful, and some of his students have gone on to incredible things. And so we started thinking and we said, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's combine the communications needs as well as our student internship needs. And that's how the Studio 701 internship was born.
Okay, Studio 701 is what you call it. So how do you select the students?
It's pretty rigorous in terms of the process. We try to create kind of a level of prestige to the internship, something that you want to join, you have to apply to join, and you have to be accepted. And so, what we do is every spring, we visit all the digital media broadcast classes at our high schools. We have 5 comprehensive high schools. And so we visit the classes. And so we have a partnership with all of the teachers there, and we basically kind of have a presentation. The interns do a presentation. Here's what's cool about the internship. Here's what you get out of it. Out of there, we let them know this is how you apply. So you need, a letter of recommendation, or your teacher has to kind of personally recommend you. There's a short application, and then there's an interview process. And so we ask that the students coming to us actually have experience. We're not starting from scratch. This is considered the capstone class if they've been taking broadcast or digital media courses throughout their high school years. So most of our applicants are juniors and seniors. And then we accept from the whole district only about 8 or 10 students.
Okay.
And so they find out in the spring whether they've been accepted or not. And then we work with them and their counselors to make sure their schedules can accommodate this internship. So we ask that they have their last period of the day off role because we're all physically meeting at one campus that's central in the district. And then we meet twice a week for a total of about 5 hours per week. And they get internship credit on their transcripts as well as a wealth of experience. And that's kind of how it works logistically.
That's incredible. So, first of all, I just want to break down you visit each high school and visit those classrooms. And it's not you presenting, Christine. It's actually this year, that year's interns will be explaining it to next year's prospective interns, right?
That's right. Because the internship, it's not just about your, hard skills of editing and shooting video. It's also about your soft skills, the teamwork, the leadership, the presentation, the professionalism, the collaboration. And so we put it on the interns and say, hey, you need to sell this internship. And they do. They do a great job.
So I'm imagining some interns might work with you for 2 years in a row. If they get it when they're a junior, they might do it both their junior and senior year.
We love students who return. We call them our veterans. So, yes, we do have students that repeat. On rare occasions, we've taken sophomores who are extraordinarily, just focused and talented and gifted. So sometimes we have them for 3 years in a row. But we love when the students return because then they, in turn, mentor the new interns that come in.
Okay. And so twice a week, they're meeting that last period, and then I'm assuming a little bit of after school time too. Is that right?
Exactly right. So it's about a 2 to 4:30 meet time.
Okay.
And so we ask them, knowing the schedule, we ask them to schedule any, jobs or other commitments like not on those days because there is that attendance required.
So would that mean, okay, I'm on the volleyball team, and so I have volleyball practice. I'm assuming after school, would that preclude that type of student from being involved in that, or would they get a kind of a pass if they have that's their volleyball season?
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily force them to not be an intern. We have worked out where, there's baseball season or there's volleyball season. We understand that our students are incredibly involved and busy. We do sometimes work around the schedule or they take that particular season off.
Okay.
So we'll say, okay, you're going to do the internship for the first, 2 trimesters, and that last trimester, since you can't commit, you know,
Okay.
you'll take a break.
Okay,
Hmm.
awesome. Would you be willing, Christine, to share that application that you use for your interns with our listeners?
Yes, of course, of course. We can share the application that it's on a webpage
Okay.
with information about the internship as well as links to previous stories that the interns have produced.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to make sure that in the show notes, everybody, you can actually look at that. That's great. So you have these students, and now what kind of projects and things and training and all that stuff? Obviously, you said these are people that have experience already, so you're not starting from ground zero. But what kind of how do they help communicate within the district?
So we always start with a summer orientation. And so that's before school starts. We take a day and they come in and there's, icebreakers and team building because we know as soon as we get started, they're going to have to work together cohesively, even if they've never met each other before. So we have an orientation day and then we review, some of our basic skills such as interviewing, writing, editing, filming, all that stuff. And so we start off kind of we want to make sure everyone has the same knowledge because we know some programs are stronger than others at different high schools and they might come in with different skill levels. Once we start the internship, when we meet, it's kind of a repeated process every month. So I serve as a mentor, and then we have our teacher, our career technical education teacher. And so we work together, and I do a lot of the, pre-planning. Okay, how do we, pitch a story? How do we plan for it? Who needs to be interviewed? What school site do we need to go to? How do you set that up and schedule? Um, what kind of questions are you asking these people when you get there? And then our teacher is more oversees the technical aspects, the making sure all the gear, the camera, the audio, the lighting, all of that is squared away. And so and then once we've done the pre-planning, we actually go and do the filming, and then there's the post production, and then they come back, and I help them write, I help them voice, um, you know then we edit and all of that stuff, and then the piece debuts at the Board of Education meeting every month. And after that, then we're pushing it out across all of our social media channels, and so the kids get to see that their work is seen by a broader audience than maybe normally their projects would be seen.
Yeah. I have 6 kids, Christine. I'm just thinking about all of the applicable skills that these kids get to learn. I
Yeah,
mean, from even like, who do we need to talk to? How do we set the interview up? Because again, you have a very small staff, so you're not able to hold their hand through every step. They are learning some of those proactive skills that are going to benefit them their entire life.
absolutely. I mean, think about just something as simple that we take for granted as adults as crafting a professional email. You know, how do you write an email to the superintendent of the school district and have it be answered, and have that professional language and dialogue and, things like that. And I really stress from the beginning, like, you're an extension of my department, and thus you're an extension of the superintendent. And so everywhere you go, you are acting professionally, you're dressing professionally. They all get custom made polo shirts. So they always dress the part, and they take pride in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said 8 to 10 students. Do you try to have representatives from every single high school then?
We really try to have somebody from all the high schools. It doesn't always work out that way, but we do really try to get a sampling of students from each of the high schools because it's a district internship. And so we really want to reflect our school district.
Right. And then I'm assuming some of the assignments might get, you know, assigned based on what high school they are at because they might be covering something that is specifically happening there.
Exactly. And so, it's really fun for the students because now they're nearing the end of their time in our school district. For them to, say, highlight a program in one of the elementary schools they once attended. And then they go back in this very professional role, and their old teacher or their old principal's there. And the kids really think they look up to them. And so for them to kind of get beyond their campus walls and their campus borders, and to see schools throughout the district, because with nearly 40 schools, we're big. And so um, it really opens their eyes to just kind of how big and the depth and breadth of the programs that we have in the school district.
And I'm imagining some of these kids are getting introduced to school PR and like, hey, this is a career that I could go into. Do you know of any of that have started to go into, you know, I guess school communications?
A lot of our interns go on to major in either journalism, film, and a couple have told me PR. And so I had one who was especially interested. And so beyond the internship, he shadowed me for a few days. And so, yeah, he said, I'm going to be a PR major. I'm going to do what you do. I'm coming back. And that really was awesome to hear because, I don't think a lot of us had school PR as a potential career path growing up. It's just not something we knew existed. And it's such a fantastic field and rewarding too. And so I loved that I was able to bring that as an option to him so early on.
Yeah. Well, this is just a fantastic way of, mentoring these kids and you said you get together a couple times in person, but then obviously there's a lot of work that goes in outside of those hours that you're together, right?
That's right. And, going back to the skills that we're teaching them, a deadline is a deadline. And so if they know that there's a deadline and it's not finished, then they're coming in, after school into the evening to get it done. And so, last year was really interesting because we had to figure out ways to create content without physically being anywhere. And so I was super proud of my students last year because they had to improvise and things like that. But this year, we're back fully in person. And so I'm really looking forward to some of the content that they'll be able to create.
Yeah. What's one of the most memorable, I'm putting you on the spot, but one of the most memorable stories that your interns worked on? Could you just share a little bit about that?
Sure. I think the most memorable stories that some of the alums still come and tell me about, like, oh, remember when we have something down here in San Diego County called BizTown, and it's basically a fake town made up of businesses that all fifth graders in our school district go to. And so they have this whole curriculum where they all interview for positions in the town, from mayor to, police officer to dentist. And so they interview and then they physically go and play out the roles and things like that. And like I was saying, the students who are now juniors and seniors, they remember their BizTown experience and very fondly. And so they got to go back and go with a group of fifth graders experiencing BizTown for the first time and see it through their eyes. And they loved that.
Oh,
We also have partnerships, obviously with local businesses. And so one of our largest employers in this area is Northrop Grumman Aerospace. And so they were allowed to go to Northrop Grumman and kind of behind the scenes in some areas that the public doesn't have access to due to security reasons. And so a lot of the students thought that was really cool too. Because in addition to telling stories, we provide guest speakers as well as field trips. So in a normal year, they might get to visit a news station here in town, or we might have multiple guest speakers in different fields. And so we try to offer that as well.
that's awesome. What a great experience. And then they're getting credit for it. Like they get a grade from the career tech teacher, is that right?
That's right. They
Okay.
get internship credit. It's on their transcript as an internship, which, if you're applying to college, that's pretty impressive that you had an internship as a high school student. And yeah, they get 20 credits, I believe, and then they get a grade. And then we obviously do, recommendations if they need them
Yeah.
for their future college.
Oh, that's incredible. That's good. Well, I know that there's probably, and we'll make sure we get all of Christine's um, contact information too, because you might be reaching out with a few other questions, but really impressed with that program. And
Oh, thank you.
you wouldn't be able, I mean, think of how much money that saves your district as well. The fact that you do that because you're essentially multiplying your small little department by that many storytellers. So that's great. Just moving on to in the Poway Unified School District, just what kind of social media channels are you guys on?
Yeah, we're all about social media. It is an integral part to our strategic communications plan. The communication specialist oversees daily content across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then recently we started LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so, depending on the platform, the content may vary or it might be the same, but we do post every single day across all those platforms.
Okay, and then I'm assuming your communication specialist is running the social media channels for the district?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And she, in addition to doing that, she really helps train our administrators and other school sites or departments, whoever wants to learn how to do social media, because we have more and more staff members really interested in that.
Right. Because do most, I mean, with 39 schools, do most of the schools have their own individual accounts then that they're running there?
I would say I would say most of our schools either have the individual school account or a principal running their kind of principal account for that school.
Okay.
That's definitely been challenging is to try to get a handle on all of the individual accounts out there. And so our latest project is to kind of consolidate and at least have access or knowledge to all the different school site accounts.
Yeah, it's like a social media directory of at least being able to know what are the official accounts that are related to the school. To have that
Exactly.
on your website is a big wish list. I know it's a big project because I get questions all the time. They're like, this person wants to start a page and this, and it's like,
Mhm.
you don't want to limit, the ability to connect and celebrate what's happening at your school. But I often talk about this. My friend Krista Majette, who wrote the book on embracing social media, is like social media is not like a free beer, it's more like a free puppy. So you got to take care of it, right? It's not like you just get to enjoy it. There's a lot of responsibility with a puppy, right?
That's a great analogy and so true. So true.
Yeah,
It
so
is
if you
high maintenance.
need to use that as, I mean, it's just almost like those people who, think they want to have kids and then it's like, no, like this is a life-changing thing. So social media can be that way. Um you a lot has changed, well, and things are still changing with COVID and everything, but obviously last year was a special year, where you weren't in person a lot of the time. Looking forward to this year, what are you most excited about celebrating? Now that people are back in person and some of that. Do you have anything that you're looking forward to most?
I think I'm most looking forward to actual in-person events happening. So I have a sophomore. My daughter's in 10th grade in high school, and my son is, in 7th grade in middle school. Both of them started the first year of their, middle and high school experiences virtually, and I feel like they've missed out on so many things like just kind of rites of passage, first homecoming game, first middle school dance, things like that, where I'm just so excited that things are happening in person again. And from my perspective, that there are things to cover again. Really, like the hardest part of, communications and keeping our school and district social media updated was the lack of things happening to cover, right? No assemblies, no special guests, no visitors, so really, we had to get creative with what we were putting out there so that we could remain consistent to our brand and really keep our followers informed and engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be very exciting. It has been a struggle and it's been a struggle for everybody. What would you say is your best social media tip if you are telling somebody for your school? What would be one of your best social media tips?
I would say a couple. So for Instagram, which is especially visual, we really started incorporating our brand colors, and fonts and things like that, so that now when you look at our feed, it's a very cohesive, well organized, and visually pleasing account. And so we didn't do that at first, but now let's see, on Instagram, we're probably around 8,000 followers.
Yeah, I was
And
just looking
so
today, so you are over 8,000.
yeah. So now when you look at it, you things are obvious that it's a Poway Unified School District post without knowing people can come here and know that it's ours. I think that's one thing. I think another tip would be um, just the use of video. We're big on video, obviously with the internship, but as well as my background in television news for 15 years. And so before I came, we weren't using video as a storytelling tool. and it's really done well for our engagement. And you guys know, with the algorithms and things like that, videos do better on a lot of the platforms. And so, really kind of learning, if you don't already do that, how to just shoot videos on your, iPhone. It can make a world of difference in the type of content you're able to produce and the engagement that you're able to get. So I'm a big proponent of that, and continue to train colleagues and friends on that platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say those are my two, and then my third is engaging your staff and students as content creators. So we did talk a little bit about the internship, a lot of it about the internship, but also our teachers. We have some very social media savvy teachers. And so we have had them host takeovers, on the first, before the first day of school. How do I put together my room? And Q&A with a, kindergarten teacher, things like that. We have some teachers who are very savvy and have distinguished themselves in their own right on their own social media accounts, and tapping into their expertise and their personality and presence has been great for us as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you have this whole, you have 39,000 students plus all your staff members that are all storytellers. Finding ways to tap into them is a great tip. So I can't end this podcast interview without asking a couple questions about you being a published author,
Oh,
which is incredible.
thank you.
And so tell me a little bit about your book and about that whole process. Tell our listeners about that.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to share. So, I am a published author of the children's picture book called The Girl in the Gold Dress. It's on Amazon. And it was actually a dream of mine to do this book with my mother. My mother is the illustrator. And so she's an extremely talented artist. And it's something we had talked about. Hey, let's do this someday, mother daughter project. And then, of course, life gets in the way and you're so busy. Well, when the pandemic happened, as all of us, suddenly my evenings were free. I was stuck at home. And so I thought, it's now or never. Coincidentally, this was around the time when all of the Asian hate crimes, we were seeing a spike. And so I felt this urgency to really kind of follow up on my vision to create a story, and for Asian American children and also non-Asian American children to see, Korean Americans portrayed in a beautiful way. And so that's kind of my motivation behind it. The story behind it is about a girl who, she's 10 years old. She's a Korean American girl, and she's embarrassed about her culture. She's embarrassed about her dress that she's going to wear and perform in a talent show for school. And through this storytelling from her mom about the history behind her dress and the mysterious connection between her dress and her great grandma's escape from the Korean War, she grows to really appreciate and take pride in her dress and her culture. And she goes on to perform proudly and beautifully the Korean fan dance for her school. And so she becomes kind of an ambassador for her culture and her family's history. And so, wow, it took a whole year from sitting down to write to getting it published. So I would say right when our school shut down is when I started, and then the following year, April, May, um, of this year is when it published. And wow, the reception's been great. I've been able to physically visit and virtually visit so many classrooms, and the stories that I get from teachers and students about the impact of the story is, it's been the greatest reward for me.
That's awesome. So, we talk about COVID projects. My COVID project was this podcast. I finally started a podcast
Yes.
that I said I was going to start for years, but I was always scared, and then I finally just sat down and figured it out because I didn't have anywhere to go either. But you wrote this beautiful book. I'm so excited to share that. And this would be a great addition to everybody's library out there. And so you can buy it right there on Amazon. I'll make sure that I also include a link to the show notes, but it's The Girl in the Gold Dress by Christine Peck. And what a special, I didn't realize that your mother illustrated it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's really something just to have this kind of mother-daughter legacy that we can leave for future generations.
yeah, I love it. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story, and thanks for spending so much time with us today. I know our listeners got a lot out of it. Christine,
Pleasure.
what's the best way for people to stay connected to you?
You can either DM me through Twitter. I'm at Christine Peck on Twitter, and or you can just email me, and that's cpeck@powayusd.com, and I'll shoot that over to you as well.
Okay, awesome. So I think I have that email address and the Twitter. So I'll link those also in the show notes. Lot to learn from Christine's story, and obviously inspiration as well to go for it. I wrote a children's book several
What?
years ago,
Awesome.
and it was it was an interesting project, and I'm glad I did it. But I remember talking to one classroom, and one little boy said, who gave you that job? Like, who gave you the job of being able to write this book? And it was like, no one did. It's like I had a story in my heart and I wanted to share it with the world. And my story was about technology balance in the home because, that's a challenge, I think, for a lot of
Oh,
people.
yes.
But the fact that you had this story in your heart that you weren't afraid to share, and then even more so with the story that you were able to tell, how that can inspire so many. So, just all our listeners, be inspired by Christine, be inspired by your own stories, and not afraid to put those out in the world because I'm sure that whole process has really been life changing for you, and as a mother yourself of showing your kids that you can go for it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think really everyone has a story to tell, and how you tell it, is what we do as communicators, being helping people tell their stories in different ways. And so yeah, my daughter, she was involved in the project as well, in helping me figure out the cover and helping me figure out the title. I would bounce things off of her, she would model for some of the paintings, so being able to involve her as well was truly special.
Oh, that is so awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And thanks everybody for listening in. We appreciate you taking the time to advance your skills and celebrating your school. We wish you the best year yet, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Bye.